Hey guys, how's it going? I'm here back doing another video. Today I'm gonna be doing another movie review. Um, on Thor: Love and Thunder. You flick too hard, damn it! Anyway, um, yeah, just got back from seeing Thor: Love and Thunder. Well, actually, I saw it yesterday, and I was gonna do my review, but I was just so tired and just exhausted, so I just didn't bother doing it. Um, But all I gotta say is this, man. This is one of my favorite Marvel films of all fucking time. Okay? Now, is the movie perfect? No. It has its comedy. It's what you'd expect. It's Taika Waititi. He's doing his thing, doing the comedy, but mix it. I think that Taika did a great job mixing comedy with badassery. That's what he did great with Ragnarok, but mixing comedy with sympathetic moments. Thing about Ragnarok, it was off the chain. It was badass, but it wasn't. The story was not as the story to this. I like the story to Love and Thunder a lot more than the story to Ragnarok, because Ragnarok was more of a just in your face, breaking the fourth wall, proper comedy, proper action, proper everything that you would want in a Thor movie was in that film. This film is my favorite, probably my favorite Thor film. I need to watch it again before I decide if it's better than Ragnarok, but it is definitely, if it's not better than Ragnarok, it's definitely number two. This film was amazing. Christian Bale, oh my God, he did such a great job as Gore, fucking God Butcher. I don't know anything about Gore, but he was amazing as Gore. I loved his performance. He was probably the best part of the movie, in my opinion. Him, Chris, and Natalie were the shows. Before I get into any of the spoiler territory, I will say that this movie has a lot of. Well, actually, no. I will get in the spoiler territory. I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about the negatives, the things that I just thought was stupid. Those fucking goats. Oh my God, they were annoying, and like I laughed at them the first time, but then it just kept going on and on and on and on and on. And I was just like, oh my God! Like the only reason I laughed was because of the sound. I love that sound. Like, ah! I love that sound. It's funny, but God, they were annoying. And when they were kicking the Guardians, I was just like, oh my God, I want to punch them right in the fucking face. Korg was very silly in this film. Um, but get this shit right. Get this shit. So, Korg is. I liked Korg a lot more in Ragnarok than I did in this. He was really silly. And I think the Taika. He turned up the comedy a bit too much, I felt like, especially in some certain scenes. Like the Natalie Portman Thor comedy between fucking Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, like the fact that Stormbreaker is jealous of Mjolnir, and 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 fucking Thor's talking to Mjolnir like it's a fucking thing, like he loves his hammer, he's obsessed with this fucking hammer. And it was like, it was so dumb, and it just made me cringe the whole time, because he's he's pouring beer over fucking Stormbreaker, because I love Stormbreaker and I love Mjolnir, but apparently Stormbreaker and Mjolnir have a soul, or have a heart. They also have feelings. They're weapons, but they have feelings though. It's like, I don't know if Taika was taking drugs while writing that shitty story between, like, that was so dumb. Like, it wasn't funny, it was just stupid. And it was in your face, kind of, what the fuck? What the fuck? Another scene that really made me go, what the fuck, was when Thor was riding Stormbreaker, like the Wicked Witch, the fucking Wicked Witch of the West. So what the fuck is this shit? And and it looked really silly too. The special effects with that it looked really dumb. It was like he just grabs like he doesn't even go like that. He grabs he fucking gets the branch and just rides it like it's a fucking broom. Like he's just ready to fuck some shit up. And he does fuck a lot of shit up in this movie. So this movie wasn't perfect. It had its flaws for sure. Another thing I didn't like was when Korg gets killed. Well, he doesn't get killed, but he gets destroyed. Thor's like, Corgi! 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 He's like, I'm all here, bro. He's a fucking face now. That was so dumb. And he was pretty much a face throughout the whole movie. Like, that was stupid. I don't know what the fuck Taika was thinking with that. I think, another thing that was really dumb and I thought was really so cringe and fucked up is Korg being gay. I thought that was dumb. I didn't like that at all. I was like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god, seriously? You gotta have to put the LGBTQ and shove it right down our fucking throats, don't you? You gotta just push it a little bit too far. And I heard in the comics that's what happens. But what I'm saying is it's happened. Like, and it's not just, but that's not just the only thing that this movie, like, Valkyrie's gay in this. They didn't make Jane and Valkyrie gay, just so you know. That didn't happen, and I was so glad it didn't, because I would have been so pissed if... Another thing that this movie, I loved about this movie, that, like, it may seem like I'm bitching about this movie and saying, like, I didn't like it. That's not true. Like, I loved this movie, but it did have... There are things that I noticed where I was like, what the fuck? And that whole story between Mjolnir and Stormbreaker getting jealous, that was fucking stupid. Like, that was really dumb. Like, you know, and I could see people being pissed off at that, and people probably not liking the movie for that, so. But I've heard some bad reviews about it. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I actually think it's a great movie when you watch it. Like, if you watch the serious scenes, the seriousness, the stuff with Gore, the stuff with the Jane, the stuff with Thor, all that was great. Valkyrie was cool in this movie. I liked her more in Endgame, but she was cool. Korg was a bit silly, you know. It was just like, you know, like I liked him more in Ragnarok and Endgame than this, but, you know, you get what you get. The Guardians are in it. The Guardians are in it for like 2 seconds. Yeah. They're in it, but they're not in it that much. The start we get to see Thor get into shape and be, you know, go from fat Thor to proper mighty Thor. Yeah. Chris Hemsworth was funny in this. He was a lot funnier. Some of the comedy was funny, but some of it was dumb. You know, the comedy with Chris and Natalie, like that, the Natalie comedy, like, Natalie Portman she's not a funny person. Like, she's not. She's a great actress. The seriousness, like, that's why I love Natalie Portman, is she's not funny. She's not a comedian. She's got depth in her acting. She doesn't go on there to just throw shit at your face and just laugh about it. Like, that's not her. She makes you care about these characters, and she made me care about Jane. I love Jane a lot more in this film than I did in the first two. The first one I loved. Second one, it was okay. The third one loved, but I loved that they brought Jane back, and they didn't make her as powerful as Thor, so I loved that. There were a lot of great scenes with her wielding the hammer. I loved Mjolnir a lot more in this than I did in the other films. The fact when you see in the clips, that breaks into the, like, you know, it breaks into fucking several pieces because it's getting respawned. Another thing, Darcy's in this film. Darcy comes back. Darcy Lewis. She was in WandaVision. So this makes me wonder if she, like, this, obviously, I don't know which one takes place in the timeline, but she is in it, which I went nuts about. Eric's in it, Selvig, for like 2 seconds. And Jane's got cancer. I love the storyline between Jane having cancer, like, and Did Natalie Portman lose a lot of weight, or was that CG? Because it looked like, because at one point she looks muscular, but then she looks really thin, like really like sick almost. Like, and I know they did that with Tony. So whether it was CG or not, or it was her actually lost a lot of weight for the role, she looked really sick in this one scene, and it looked like she actually lost a lot of weight. Either that, or they just did really great CGI on her being really thin. I loved that it was so good that they brought this cancer storyline, and they made it so much better, because I went into this movie thinking, oh no, they're gonna bring Mjolnir back, they're gonna make her more powerful than Thor, what the fuck? And I went into this movie like thinking the worst of her character, but I actually loved her character. She dies at the end, which I actually, believe it or not, I cried in this movie. Believe it or not, I cried in this movie. I did. Okay, the only Marvel movies that I've ever cried in was Spider-Man No Way Home, which I cried at least 7 or 8 times. Endgame, which I've cried at least 4 or 5 times. Infinity War, which I cried at least, like, I probably cried throughout the whole movie. Civil War, I teared up in a couple scenes. Winter Soldier was teary. WandaVision, I teared up. And of course, I teared up. I think I teared up in Miss Marvel at one scene, maybe. But I teared up in WandaVision. Not WandaVision, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, especially that scene at the end where she says, I'm not a monster. Like, that made me teary. And the kids were trying to get away from her. But the one scene, Natalie and Chris's chemistry, because that was the biggest, weakest part of the first two films, is they're two very attractive people that want to fuck. Like, that, you could feel that. Like, you could see that coming. But in this film, there's a lot more of an emotional story to Jane, and I love that. And probably because Taika's a better director than, Kenneth Branagh's a great director, but Alan Taylor, he's touch and go sometimes. And Taika Waititi's got a great sense of humor and a great style. Can we just talk about God the God Butcher? Holy shit, how fucking awesome was Gore? Like, Jesus Christ, like, he was so good. It starts off with an amazing scene with him and his daughter. They're in the desert. And I didn't even know if the movie started yet. I was like, is this an ad or is this a movie? It's a movie. And his daughter dies, and then this god's being a dick to him. He grabs the sword, which the CGI and that god looked so dumb. It was so cringy. I was just like, that's not actually him. But anyway, he kills this god. He stabs him, like, this god grabs Gore by the neck, stabs him in the throat, and then cuts off his fucking head. And he says, all gods will die. And that's the beginning of what else to come. And it starts off with a great scene and gets better as the movie goes on. Christian Bale's scary, man. He was scary. Like, that scene where he's jumping in there and he's talking to the kids and he's ripping that fucking, like, that was scary. Like, I know there was a bit of comedy in there, but it was scary, though. And he was intimidating. He was menacing. He was menacing. Like, that scene where he's about to choke Jane out, like, that was scary. And he was menacing to me. He was menacing. I loved everything they did with the Thor the Thor and Jane chemistry. It was so good. I felt their chemistry a lot more in this film than I did in the last two. Like, that scene where she's literally, like, thin. She's, like, pretty much sick, like, dying, really. She's dying. And she's like, why don't you want me to go out? And he's like, because I love you. And she's crying, and he's crying. Like, I started tearing up in that scene. It was so emotional. She decides to go back on the battlefield. And yes, she dies in this film. That's another scene I cried in. I thought they were going to replace... to believe it or not, I thought they were going to kill off Thor, but they didn't kill Thor. They didn't kill Thor, but they killed Jane and they killed Gore. So those are two gutsy kills, like Jane in particular, because I thought she was going to become, like, she is the mighty Thor in this film, but only for one film. I thought she was going to become the next, Thor in the Avengers, but nah. Or maybe she could be, because we get a post-credit. There's two post-credit scenes at the end. The first one, Russell Crowe's in this film. He plays Zeus. And he's pretty much he's talking to someone and saying the gods, we become a joke and all this stuff. And he's saying they never fear us, but they will fear us again. Do you understand, my son? Hercules. Hercules is revealed, which I thought was awesome because I love Hercules. I actually love the movies. I didn't like the Legend of Hercules, but I loved the Dwayne The Rock Johnson one, and I loved the cartoon one. The Arnold Schwarzenegger one was fucking stupid, but it was really dumb. But anyway, I love that they brought Hercules in, and I didn't even know Hercules was actually a part of the Marvel comics, so that was fucking cool to see. I love that they... So, the second one, Jane goes to... Pretty much, she goes to heaven. Or this godly heaven. Like, I don't know what the fuck they call it, but fuck, I had the name, but I just can't think. But yeah, she goes to heaven. Idris Elba comes back. Heimdall's there saying, you're dead now, so welcome to whatever the fuck he said, and they take off. So she has become another god to die and go to heaven, and the funny thing is, I love that by the end of the film, so that's when Jane dies, but Gore dies as well. He's suffering with cancer as well, so they did that as well, so that was really interesting. Gore dies, and Christian Bale's acting, it teared me up as well. So Jane and Gord both die at the same time. The thing that's pissed me off about Marvel is why they kill their villains, and I really hate that they've killing all their villains. I hate it. I hated how they killed Hela. I hated how they killed Thanos. I hated how they killed... Well, they didn't kill Goblin, thank fuck for that. But they were nearly about to kill Goblin. And I hated how they killed Wanda. I hated how they killed... I just hate that they've killed, like, all their villains. Carly Morgenthau. There's a couple of villains that have survived, but most of them are fucking dead. Most of the good ones are dead. Or most of the good ones all die. But his death was emotional because he's dying, but he doesn't get killed by Thor. He gets killed by the cancer, and he's just dying, and he's suffering, and he becomes... he wishes for his daughter back. So he's pretty much... He went to eternity to kill all the gods. He didn't do that. He wished for his daughter back. We get to see his daughter come back. And he says, look after her. Or something like that. And he says, I will. So now Thor is... He's... Daddy Thor or Uncle Thor. So, and that put a huge smile on my face because Thor, throughout all the movies, or at least any of the recent ones, he's fighting for nothing. It's time for him to rest. He's been lost for a long time, Thor has. Since Ragnarok, he has been lost. He lost his mother in Dark World. He lost his father. He lost, Thor's a very depressing character when you're thinking. He lost his brother from Thanos. He lost half the universe, and he thought it was his fault. He's chopped off Thanos' head. But that was not, when I first saw Endgame and I saw that scene, I was like, ooh. I wasn't, yay, they killed him. It was out of revenge and hatred and just evilness. And it was extremely depressing because they didn't win. He killed him like a punk and then just left. And then 5 years later he becomes Fat Thor, which, but I gotta say, the comedy wasn't over. The comedy in Endgame was really stupid. A lot of the scenes with Thor was dumb. I loved Thor a lot more in this film than I did in Endgame. Endgame's probably, Thor is probably his worst. Him at his best probably is either this or Infinity War, in my opinion. But he's becoming, and they illustrate that as well. He's lost, he's hatred. You see this kind of brokenness to Thor, and you see that in this film, but you kind of like, and that's when the comedy kind of, gets in the way of like, because the thing about Thor in Endgame and the Thor in, like, you could tell it's directed by a different director who knows comedy and tries to do stuff different. But anyway, I love that Thor becomes he falls in love. He falls in love with Jane again. Jane dies, and he doesn't want her to die, and she dies, and then he has to take care of this child of Gore, and that just shows you that he's not a broken human being. He's got something to live for. He's got something to fight for. And if they're gonna do another Thor film, I would love for them to do another one. And from the Phase 4 that we've seen, it's like they're not even gonna do another Avengers. They're just making stories, and they're trying to go in different directions. Because Spider-Man is going in another direction. The people don't even know who he is now. Neither the Avengers do. Thor's being Daddy Thor at the moment. Doctor Strange is going in another direction. So it's not like Marvel just taking these stories in other directions. Eventually they'll cross over. Eventually, these people will meet up. But at the moment, it's just taking its time in the storytelling. And do you know what? You want my opinion on Phase 4? A lot of people said Phase 4 is dog duty. A lot of people saying it's shit. It's not the best. It's probably one of the worst phase. I disagree. I completely disagree. Here's my take on Phase 4. Absolutely fucking loved WandaVision. Loved it. Absolutely loved Falcon Winter Soldier. Loki, wasn't that fond of it. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I just thought it was okay. Absolutely loved Black Widow. Absolutely loved Shang-Chi. I've got it on DVD. I absolutely loved What If. Absolutely loved Eternals. Even though many hated it, I thought it was a great film. I didn't see the hatred. I couldn't see why people would hate something. Like, the people say it's the worst Marvel ever. No. No. Captain Marvel was worse than that. Guardians 2 was worse than that. You got to dig real hard and watch those movies and say, well, second guess yourself. But anyway, Spider-Man No Way Home is the best movie I've ever seen in my life. The best movie ever made. The best Marvel movie. The best movie ever. Moon Knight was amazing. I loved Moon Knight. Didn't like Doctor Strange. I was heavily disappointed with that. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. Oh, Hawkeye. Didn't like Hawkeye that much. I thought it was very disappointing. It's so disappointing. Even though I loved Haley Steinfeld and Jeremy Renner, but as a show, it was just it's forgettable. Kingpin, he was cool, but the Kingpin character, like, I liked Kingpin, and I need to watch Daredevil because I loved Kingpin in the Hawkeye, and the same actor who plays him is apparently better in Daredevil, so I need to watch Daredevil. I'm loving Miss Marvel at the moment. I watched the first couple. I'm up. So episode 6 comes out this week, which I can't wait to see because I loved episode 5. Loving Miss Marvel, and I never thought I would. I didn't think I was going to love it at all. Thought it was going to be shit. But I'm absolutely loving Ms. Marvel, and this, in my opinion, is one of the best Marvel movies. So there's No Way Home, this, then Eternals, and all the others. So anyway, all I gotta say is this movie is amazing, and if you disagree with me, please be respectful, and this is just my opinion. It's not the right opinion, it's just my opinion. Yes, there are negatives. This movie is not a perfect movie. I will never say it's perfect because there's a lot of stupid shit in it. But compared to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it's a huge improvement. Huge improvement. But anyway, mainly because Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness pretty much, I shouldn't say it sucks, but it was suckish. It was a suckish movie. But anyway, all I gotta say is I'm going to give this 30 out of 10. This movie is great. Love it. Watch it. Definitely watch it. It's worth watching. It's worth sticking around for. It's definitely worth your time. I think a lot of people are going to either love it or hate it. Take it or leave it. It's one of those movies. I was on the take it side. I wasn't on the leave it side. So anyway, Marvel, keep doing what you're doing because it's working. So anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.